Noach gets quite a bad rap, and there is some grounds for this. Of course, Noach was a tzaddik, but he didn't help change his generation. Everyone in the generation was wicked, and he spent all his time building the ark, building the teva, but we know he didn't go out and try and do kiruv and try and get people to do teshuvah. It is true that he didn't necessarily go the extra mile in that sense. Additionally, also in contrast to Avraham specifically, he did not daven for the generation as far as we are aware. Avraham was told about a wicked group of people, and Avraham's response was to daven, to pray and see, is there anything that could be done to save that people? We don't have any evidence that Noach even davened for the people around him. And of course, the pasuk says he was ish tzaddik, tamim haya b'dorotav, and he was a great man. But even with that line itself, there are statements in Chazal which Rashi brings, which is there's dorshim leganai, that there are those who interpret even that in a negative way to say he was a righteous person in his generation, but that means he was righteous only in a relative sense, but in an absolute sense, if he was in a different generation, it wouldn't have necessarily been that way. So Noach gets quite a hard rap. However, there is one quality that Noach had, which I would give anything to have. We have a mitzvah of V'alachta bidrachav. We have a mitzvah to follow in the ways of God, to emulate God. And what is the ultimate way we do this? The Gemara lists a few different things. Ma'u rachum, ma'u chanun. There are a few different ways that we emulate God, but what is the main way? Rav Hutner says that we emulate God. What is the ultimate characteristic of God which we could emulate? That is the characteristic of independence. The Rambam says that everything called talui bo, that everything is dependent on God, and He is not dependent on anything else. God is the ultimate independent reality, and if we strive for independence, we are fulfilling the mitzvah of v'alachta bidrachav in the best possible way. This is something which Noach had. Can you imagine what it must have been like to have everyone around you doing one thing, and you stay strong somehow, and you do the right thing? Tzaddik tamim b'dorotav. That is unbelievable. I think it's hard. I think we all think about this. We all think about, putting ourselves, which we should, obviously, because we have to be realistic. We all think about putting ourselves in the most helpful environment for our own spiritual well-being, for our own emotional well-being, because we're affected by our environment. It's very hard. But Noach had an unbelievable independence to be able to stay strong in his morality despite his overwhelming environment. So how can we work on this? What would this look like for us to work on independence? Well, we can start even in the very practical realm of independence, in terms of very practical things like being reliant on other people, even financially. This is seemingly a value which has gone by the wayside of financial independence. This is something all our, without getting into it too much after a lengthy hashkafic discussion earlier today, but there are, we sometimes lose sight of the fact that even practical independence is a value that we have. That is something which we can consider. We also must consider independence in the intellectual realm. One of the great rabbis of the previous generation, Rav Gifter, Rav Mordechai Gifter, who's Rosh Hashiva of Telz, they say that actually the Talmidim didn't always used to like to go to him for advice because he was so dynamic and so independent, no one knew what he was going to say. And that's what you go to someone for advice because you want them to tell you something, and so you go to the person who's going to tell you the thing that you want them to tell you, and then good. So that's how most of us seek advice. So the Talmidim often didn't go to him for advice because he was complete dynamo. No one knew what he was going to say next because he would think independently what is the right thing, and you could never predict what that was going to be. He would seek the independent truth in every particular case, and this is true about many of our Gedolim, that they had an unbelievable intellectual independence. They did not feel the need to think something, to believe something just because that's what people believe, just because that's what people are thinking, just because that's what people are doing. They would seek the truth, and it didn't matter to them whether anyone agreed with them. That is what they would do. So both in the realm of the practical and certainly in the realm of the intellectual, these are places which we want to seek independence. And finally, a third realm where we can try and apply this is the realm of the emotional. In psychology, they talk about an internal locus of self-worth or an external locus of self-worth. Basically what it means is, where do you get your self-esteem from? Where do you get your self-worth from? Do you get it from the outside, which is a very normal thing to happen? When someone compliments me, I feel good about myself. When someone doesn't compliment me, I start to question myself. That is a very normal thing, and it's kind of an unhealthy thing. What we should strive for is having an internal locus of self-worth. That it's not about what others think about me that makes me feel decent about who I am as a human being. It is what I have myself which can make me feel that. And we all have so much reason, we have so many reasons to have this internal locus of self-worth. We are made in the image of God. We have a neshama. The Nefesh HaChaim says that the ladder that Yaakov saw in his dream going from the earth all the way up to the heavens, it was an image of himself. That is the reality of who we are. We are people who go all the way from the earth all the way up to the heavens. This is, we're very special people. And speaking Baruch Hashem among friends, I know everyone in this room, and this is certainly true, very, very true about everyone here, that we all have unique things in addition to these general things, Baruch Hashem, which God gifted to us. We all have our individual strengths and our individual gifts to bring to the table as well. And with that, we can have even an emotional independence and not be dependent on the approval of others to have self-worth, but we can actually have it inherently from these things that God has given us. So with that, we should indeed, of course, try and take responsibility and not ignore others in our generation. We should certainly pray, and we should certainly try and be as righteous as we can in a general sense. However, we should indeed emulate Noach in the way that he emulated God, with his independence, in the realm of the practical, in the realm of the intellectual, and in the realm of the emotional. And with that, we should know that we have every reason to believe in ourselves regardless of what anyone thinks. This is something that no one can take away from you.